Today's guest is Mitzi Mead. She's president and CEO of Anakim Consulting, which is a women-owned HUBZone certified small business providing IT and business development services in the federal marketplace. We know each other from the ACT-IAC community, where she served on the Industry Advisory Council's executive committee. She's been a board member for ACT-IAC and the executive chair. She's held multiple positions over the years with their leadership development programs, and she's a fellow from the Partners Program in 2001. Mitzi, it's always great having a chat with you. Thanks for joining me today.
Great. Thank you, Jeremy. I'm really happy to be here.
So for those who haven't met you, had a chance to talk with you over drinks or just in a networking event, talk about your background, where you're from, who you are, and what you do.
Well, great. I am actually from a military family. My father was a career Marine officer, and so we moved around a lot. I consider myself from North Carolina, although I lived in Virginia for most of my adult life. So, when you're from a military family, you're moving every couple of years. So we moved up and down the East Coast, and then I graduated. I had to move my senior year of high school before my senior year, which was not fun, from North Carolina. Then I went to South Carolina, to Beaufort, South Carolina, finish up there. And then when I graduated high school, I went to Virginia Tech and followed my three other siblings to Virginia Tech. So all four of us went one after the other to Virginia Tech. So we're a big Hokie family.
So now, as you were deciding, so that was the easy part, right? You knew it's a Hokie family, gonna go to Virginia Tech. How long did it take you to decide what you wanted to major in?
Well, I was always good in science and math. And so I decided I would go into the engineering school at Virginia Tech, not really understanding really what that was. And so I did. I really, like I said, I didn't know what I was going to do with it, but I did go and I went to engineering school at Tech, and I graduated as an industrial engineering and operations research degree. And I got out of school. I actually worked for a government contractor right out of school. My parents were, once again, military family. My parents were stationed up in Northern Virginia. So I had been living in Northern Virginia as an adult, and I got an internship with a company in Crystal City called Tracor between my junior and senior years of college. And so they were government contractor. When I graduated, so I worked there all summer before my senior year. I went back to Virginia Tech for my senior year, and then they offered me a job while I was at Tech, which was wonderful because it was decent money, and I knew by like January that I had a job. So my last couple months of whatever, all of my other friends were trying to find a job. I didn't know what they were going to do. I had a job and was waiting to go back to the company I had worked for. So that worked out really well. So I graduated as an industrial engineer and from Virginia Tech, and went to Tracor to work just work for them as a program analyst, starting fresh out of school.
I was going to say, did you ever really do industrial engineering, or?
No, no. Now I was proud of myself. I did take the professional engineering exam and I passed it. It's two pieces. You have to sit for the PE exam, and then you have to do the work part of it. And I never was actually an engineer. But I was very proud of myself that I passed the test afterwards. So, but no, I never really used it. I did all sorts of different jobs in my career, program analyst work. I mean, when you're right out of college, they were just having me do all the little jobs that people didn't want to do. And then I left there. It was a great job. And then I left there and I went to a company called Unisys, which people might know. Which has now been bought by SAIC, but I worked for Unisys for many years. And I went to Unisys while I was at Tracor. I had used computers in course in college, but I was really self-taught at Tracor on PCs and what to do with them. And so I went to Unisys and I started working there, and I became a Linux system or a Unix systems administrator, not Linux. They didn't even have Linux back then. And started learning more and more about computers. And so I've always been on the technology side since right after college.
Wow, that's very interesting. I always forget Unisys had a Unix business because I started on their mainframes.
Yeah, I was a system administrator, and I was in there working on them. And actually, I was doing something today, my PC was having some problems, and the guy was troubleshooting, and he had me go out to the DOS prompt, and I was doing my commands. I'm like, I remember all of this back in the day. So it felt good to be doing that.
Now, were you still doing the program analyst, or did you kind of shift gears?
I shifted more to technical. Then I was a technical. I was a system administrator.
That's right. Yeah, because you did
And
Unix. And you stayed technical for a
I
long
stayed
time?
technical for a long time, and then I was technical. I was starting to help with Unisys was bidding on a lot of programs, and it was a program called Desktop 3. I'm going to date myself, but Desktop 3 was many years ago, and I was very young, and it was when the PCs, the third iteration of the huge Air Force desktop contract.
Mm-hmm.
And I was on the team that helped work on that, helped to write the proposal and then do the functional test and the live test demos of that. And
Wow.
when we won that big, and then Unisys won that large Air Force 3 desktop contract, and it was really a lot. It was really a lot of fun because I was getting, at that time, I was working on PowerPoint, and it was when PowerPoint was first out, and I was getting directly from Microsoft the updates to it wasn't even released yet. And I was getting the daily updates to PowerPoint, and I would have to say, oh, this doesn't work, because we were getting ready to present PowerPoint in this live test demo with the Air Force. So that was really fun to do that.
Yeah, that is exciting. I remember Desktop 3. That was probably about the time I started doing stuff as well. Desktop 4 was much bigger. I remember doing a lot of PC buys through Desktop 4, but that brings me back.
Yeah.
And then what was next for you after Unisys?
Well, I stayed at Unisys a long time, but I decided that I wanted to go into, I continued to work on a couple of different, projects, proposals. Then I decided I wanted to go into sales. So I was working on another project called GSAS, which was for the General Services Administration, and was also there doing the functional demos, this was back when the government, where you would physically be there with a demo, and I would actually be timed. I would have a script, and I would have to type in the script while the government person was timing me so we could get through these tests it was really stressful because you were sitting there, and I did a lot of those different demos. So that was the GSAS program. And after we won that, I said to Unisys, I said, I'd really I know the systems, I know the client now. Now I'd like to try to sell them. We have a contract. So that's where I got my first taste of sales and trained with Unisys.
Oh, wow. And what drove that? Was it just a different opportunity?
You know what drove that? I think I love the technology part, but I also liked being client focused. I liked being out of the office I really liked doing those demos. I liked talking to the Air Force. I liked talking to GSA when I worked on those other programs. And so I wanted to tie the two together, that my knowledge of technology, and then to be able to use that where you're actually you're outward facing versus in the company every day. I really like that part of it.
And did you stay in sales? I know you do some
Stayed
sales now,
in,
right?
yeah, I've stayed in, then it was sales, then business development, and then business development, sales management, and then business development consulting, and then it led on to my own company.
Now, was there a big decision involved when you kind of moved into the management realm?
Yes, and Unisys was a really good company for me. I learned a lot while I was there, and they helped me by kind of moving me up. And so I was on sales and with GSA, and then I ended up having a third of the federal civilian agencies for Unisys, which was a lot of fun. So I was managing 7 sales reps with a big number, and working with them, learning more about, because I had only called really on GSA, learning more about the other civilian agencies and learn more about our government.
And so then what what brought you to the point where you decided I would do this on my own?
Well, one of the things that working for a company like Unisys gave me, especially on the sales, is Unisys did product and services. We
Mhm.
sold PCs, we sold mainframes, we sold mid-range, we sold Unisys sold a lot of different things, hardware, software, as well as services. So I learned how to sell hardware, I learned how to sell software. Then I also learned how to sell the services part, all sorts of different, mostly application development and administrative implementation services. So that really gave me, and for an integrator, working for an integrator, you work with manufacturers, you work with small businesses. So working for an integrator really gives you a broad swath of what it takes in this industry. Since you can, so I left Unisys and I went to a software company. On business development on a software company and learned more about than just what a manufacturer does. And then a couple more jobs after that, or actually, yeah, 2 more jobs after that. And then I went to a consulting firm. I worked for PricewaterhouseCoopers for a while and then learned the consulting end. So I kind of hopped around to different companies in our industry and learned, because when I working for a consulting company, Unisys, I hadn't sold the high-end consulting services. So when I went to PricewaterhouseCoopers, I learned that part. And so from there, I had kind of basically all of it. From the technology standpoint, I had sold all of it. So I could pull it all together. And during all that time, really during all the time, the more important thing for me to start my own business was when I was in sales, I knew that I needed to network. So that's where ACT-IAC came in. So when I started moving into the sales realm, I started looking out in our industry about what were the good associations to become familiar with and to work with to grow. And 2 of those were at early in my career, it was a firm. A firm was really good to me, and I got on the board there, was on the board for many years, and then ACT-IAC. So with ACT-IAC, I started at the first just attending the events, wanting to go to the conferences, learning new things, meeting new people. And then I started volunteering. And from there, I joined the professional development programs.
Wow, it's interesting to me that you have the breadth of experience, right? As you said, the technology, the manufacturing, the high-end consulting. Did you plan that knowing that you were going to do something, or was it just general interest? What kind of drove that variety?
Well, money, some
Some will
making some
always be.
financial decisions along the way. Uh, but uh, but no, it just kind of happened that way. I didn't really plan it. I didn't say, hey, I've got this. I don't understand this section of the market. It just really worked out that way. Unisys gave me that big breadth.
Yeah.
And then Mercury Interactive, who was then bought by HP, gave me the manufacturer. And then, like I said, Price Waterhouse gave me that consulting on top of it. So it just rounded me out well. One of the things I think but what I did, so it really wasn't, that wasn't really planned out so much, but what was planned out for me was the networking, was joining the associations. And one of the things that I realized, which I think helped me the most in my career, what I realized at a young age is that networking you shouldn't approach networking with only one pinpoint focus. And what I mean by that is when I went out, I met as many people as possible and didn't care who they were with or what they were with. I mean, these are in our industry.
Right.
And now, of course, I did try to focus some on, like, if I was calling on GSA, I would try to meet some people from GSA, but I also knew that I wanted to meet as many people as possible. So, and I see younger people now making that mistake, kind of, if they don't think that the person will do something for them right then
Mhm.
they're not interested. And I think you have to take with networking, I really think the most important is taking a long range view on it.
Mm.
You just have to, and to be long range and broad about as meetings. You never know when you're out, when you go to one of these events, when you meet somebody one night, what they can do for you, the next day or 5 years from you, or what you can do for them even. So I think that's really important to when you are, if your job is outward facing and you want to network, which I think is good for everybody actually, then I think you want to do it from a long focus. You got to do some focus because you've got to do your job right now, but you've got to be wide about it and broad about it, and look to meet as many people as possible from all different walks of life and different agencies and different companies and all of that. And I think that as over the years, then you end up knowing a lot of people and running into people that have changed jobs or gone from government to industry, industry to government, and that you know them. So that's really good.
And I think you can have friends, right? And
Yeah,
it's funny because growing
yeah,
up, the focus in business was business isn't for friendship, business is for
that's a
business. But I think that's different. Now
great point.
you meet some amazing people and they can become lifelong friends.
They, most, I would say 75% of my friends now are from our industry.
Yeah.
I have a set, other set that, from earlier, but most of my friends are ones that I met out and about government industry, out and about in this very social and wonderful industry that we're a part of.
Mhm. So then you've got that well-rounded experience. You've done a lot of networking. You know a lot of people. You start a company.
Yeah, yes. Now, the only reason I started a company is because two other people came to me. People have been telling me, hey, why don't you do your own? Why don't you put out your own shingle and be a consultant? And I was like, I don't really want to, it's not really what I want to do. And I didn't want to do it alone. I didn't want to step out alone. It's very scary to step out and do your own business. And I got approached by two of my friends, two coworkers, who said, we were all kind of in the same situation. And they said they had been talking, and they said that they wanted to start a consulting business. And they said they want to bring another person in. Who do they want? And they both said, we want to bring in Mitzi. And they called me up, and so I had wanted to do it, but I didn't want to do it on my own because I wanted to be able to share. I wanted to have people to talk to. I wanted a team concept. And so they came to me, and I said, I said yes immediately. It was just yes immediately. When they decided, they came to me, and it was perfect time, job wise. And so they came to me, and we started it was a different name of the company. We had to change the name this a year and a half ago, but we started the company as Excella Consulting, and that was Mark Zoner and Pat Crovo, who I'm both friends with still today. So we started the company in 2007 as an outsourced business development firm, and made a lot of mistakes, did a lot of good things. But so 17 years later, I am still in my own business. The two male partners both rolled out a couple years later, and then I did have it on my own. But by then, the company, we were up, we were running. I knew what I was doing. I knew I could do it, and so by then I was fine to have to keep the company by myself.
That's amazing. I love hearing stories of people who
Yeah.
took that plunge. And even as you said, we do it with some friends. I have a friend of mine who's started a business with a partner, right? He reached out to an old mentor and said, hey, would you come alongside, even if it's only for a short while, and do this with me and help me get it going? And I think that's reasonable, right? You either need to have somebody in the industry who will be a mentor from another company, or
Mhm.
have some people go with you, because you do need that ability to talk freely and strategize and talk about what's working, what's not working.
And you need people with different skill sets than you have.
Yeah.
Which has turned out to been an issue for me. But it was I tell people all the time when people ask me about starting their own business, I say, I'm not one of those people that says, oh yeah, go out and do it. You should, because it's very difficult. I
Hmm.
tell people it's not for the faint of heart. But I mean, it has wonderful advantages, but it also has a lot of disadvantages. You know, if I look back, as I look back, would I do it a little differently? Yes, I would. I do though love that I'm very proud that, you know, we've grown. Because we started out as an outsourced business development. So we were helping other companies sell to the federal government. And then I went, well, you know, why am I not doing that for myself? I know how to do this. So we turned, I had a woman after the two male partners left. It was a woman-owned company. Then I went, well, if I want to do this, I know my background, my strength is business development. I can identify the opportunities. I can get us on teams, but it's the doing the work. And I do have a technical background, so I can, you know, kind of, you know, see things at the 30,000 foot level. But I knew that there's a gap for me. So I said, well, I've got to have another socioeconomic category. So about that time, and I think this is a great story. About that time, as I said, my family background, my father was a Marine. So we moved around a lot. And I had toyed with getting HUBZone certified, but I wanted it to be something that was meaningful to me. I didn't want to just go get a HUBZone that was a block in, you know, local census tract in DC or in Leedsburg or something. I wanted it to mean personally something to me. So I kind of looked around. There's a HUBZone map. You get on it and you plug in places to see if they're in a HUBZone. And I had plugged them in where my parents lived, where different things, the list Belmont, North Carolina, where my HUBZone is now, and nothing. And about the time my two brothers were moving back to my mother's hometown, where my parents and where we lived while my father was in Vietnam. So they were moving back, and I said, you know, I'm just going to plug the Belmont into the HUBZone map one more time. And sure enough, and Belmont it's a small town, but it's not teeny. So your HUBZones can be counties, or they can just be local census tracts. So the local census tract that was a hub in the HUBZone in Belmont is the actual place, the streets where I physically ran the streets as a child. My great grandmother
Wow.
lived there. My grandmother lived there. My great aunt lived there. I would go back and forth between my great grandmother's house and my grandmother's house, up and down the street. This little piece of Belmont is the HUBZone, and that's where my office is today. So it means a great deal to me. I was just there last week, and I walk around a lot. I walk past my great grandmother's house, old house, my grandmother's house. So Belmont itself means a lot. Like I said, my parents met and married there. And my brother lives there now. And so it's just a wonderful, so it kind of brought that full circle to me that I needed this HUBZone to help me, because of course, and I probably should have said, you know, with federal procurement, small businesses, there are different socioeconomic categories, and there are four, and I have two of them. I'm a woman on HUBZone. The other two are service disabled and 8A, and then general small business. So when you are a small business, having these socioeconomic categories really helps you when you're trying to break in, when you're
Mhm.
trying to make yourself. Yeah, there's so many companies in our industry. You know, what are your discriminators? What can you do? What do you have? These socioeconomic categories really help you. So getting this HUBZone category in my mother's hometown was wonderful. And I've got a nice write-up on my website about in the HUBZone about the whole thing, and knowing what it means to me. So if anybody gets a chance to go out and look at that and read a little bit about Belmont, North Carolina.
Yeah, we'll have to put that in the link for this video. So that is fascinating. And then for those who may not understand, so what other, I mean, so when you talk about these socioeconomic opportunities, HUBZone being one of them, woman-owned business being another, what is that opportunity for those who don't know?
Well, so you have to as it's either it's either what you are as a person, male, female, so woman owned, what you did for your country, service disabled, were you hurt in the wartime, or not just war, but when you were on active duty. 8A, if you're a minority status, you can become an 8A. And then HUBZone. HUBZone is about the one of the categories what's about where people live and work. So it's a little different. And that's what I like about it. It's live and work, and so, to help that community, that piece of the United States, to help them, to bring business to them. So the federal government, in order to help small businesses, has these socioeconomic goals, and they actually set up percentages of that they have to meet when they're spending their money. They have to have these percentages that they meet across all the government agencies. So that helps small businesses like mine with being able to compete with other businesses and with large businesses, because they set aside money for small businesses. It's great. I mean, the federal government really does a lot to help small businesses grow.
That's awesome. That's so awesome. So looking back, Mitzi, what's something that either, in our industry you wish we did differently, or in your career you wish you had done differently? Either one would work. What's something looking back?
So I would say I've learned a lot over. So when my company was the business development firm, I it was just kind of just an extension of what I had always done. When I shifted my company to becoming an IT contractor, right now we have work at NASA, DHS, HHS. I have people on site. It's really a lot. We're doing some cool stuff. We're at Marshall Space Flight Center and Goddard Space Flight Center. We're at CBP at DHS. We're at OIG at HHS. So we're doing some really cool things with the government. But my background was the business development. It wasn't program management. It wasn't pricing. It wasn't contracts. So, and as a business owner, you have to do all of those. And I really wish when we first started the company, that instead of focusing on that business development, that we had taken that business development acumen and grown the IT company back then. Now we would have had to set it up differently so that we could have, because the woman owned, we would have had it structured to make me probably 50% owner for that. But anyway, I wish we had started out then, because then I had the two partners who had different skill sets. So I've really had to learn a lot. Now, through that, you do make mistakes. One of my major, I have an engineering degree and an MBA from GW. I went to get my MBA at night. And it was so funny, because I have the engineering degree and all the science and the math. When I went to get my MBA, accounting was easy for me, statistics was easy for me, but what I couldn't do was write. I couldn't write. I never had to write in college, ever. And so I'd have to write a paper and I'd panic, and everybody else would say, if I had to write 5 pages, it would just be like, it was horrible for me. And I still am not a good writer. And of course, with what we do, that's a big part of what we do. So I have that big gap from knowing me. So when we started the company, I really wish we had gone all together as an IT company. Then I would have had that skill set, but then that wouldn't have stretched me. I've had to learn so much on my own. And I think I really have. And you can go out and you can consult and you'll get people to help you. There's a lot of good consultants in our agency. So to fill my gaps, I've done some of that. I've hired consultants, which I know because I was one. So I know how to work with them, and it does work really well to hire consultants to come in to fill a niche need that you have.
I mean, I think that's something people don't talk about a lot, right? I mean, we hear it because we're in the GovCon space.
Yeah.
But teaming is a big deal.
Yes, it is.
Or reaching out and partnering with another company on a deal is a big deal. When you're small, it's huge. I worked for a number of small companies in the federal contracting space before I came into government, and we had to pick and choose a big partner or a small partner or whatever to win the work.
Yeah. And the thing about, you're being a small business owner, the buck does really stop with you. You don't, I have many sleepless nights just, thinking about, because I am responsible for people. You pay yourself last always. That's just how it is. And, as you grow, then you can pay yourself a little bit more, but, sometimes a little less, just depends on how it's going. But it's a huge responsibility. But on the other hand, being the master of your own destiny is really nice.
Mm. That's a good lesson for people to think about as they consider it, right?
You've
We're
gotta,
still,
you've
yeah.
got to have, you have your own control, but with that control, you have so much responsibility, and
Mm.
it's all on you. And that's what it is to be a business owner.
Wow. So what's coming up for you this year, Mitzi?
Well, we got a couple of good things. Well, on the industry side, I'm continuing. I'm helping ACT-IAC right now to reinvigorate the fellows program and fellows, which for people who don't know, it's it's the Alumni Association for the Voyagers and Partners program, which are professional development programs at ACT-IAC, which are fabulous. It's one of the best things I did besides my master's degree and starting my own business, was going through the ACT-IAC professional development program. That's where they foster communication between government and industry. It's half government and half industry in the class, and they're just tremendous programs. And so during COVID, the fellows program didn't say fell by the wayside. It just, there, because of what was going on and not being able to be there in person with people. It just we kind of lost kind of lost that luster with the program. And so what we're doing is we're reinvigorating it. And we're doing new events, and we've got a group. We're meeting monthly, trying to find new things to do for our alumni group, not just networking, but with content. And so I'm going to really focus on that this year we've got a good start on that. And we're going to really focus on that from my association and kind of giving back. That's the main thing I'm going to do. And then from the company standpoint, I've got to work on some things internally for me, ISO certification, which I'm not looking forward to. I know I have to do it. It's the next thing for me, the next growth for me. Also to grow, I'm hoping for a nice little growth bump this year. So everything's kind of on that side. We should be getting our facilities clearance this year. Was for just small business. That's a really big deal. And just putting one foot in front of the other and trying to, as a small business, you kind of you got to focus, you got to prioritize, and you've got to pick up just a few things to work on, that are going to give you kind of the biggest bang for the buck. And of course, always it's trying to find new opportunities and new teaming partners, and get on teams and bid things for government work. But it's also getting your ducks in a row and your processes and everything set up internally as a company, so that when you do grow, you can grow in a better way. And so those certifications are helping us. We're setting up our processes now, and that's the big deal for me. And since I don't write well, that's where we go. That's where it comes back to haunt me. So.
Well, Mitzi, I look forward to seeing how that goes for you this year.
Yeah.
I know we'll interact a bunch since I'm helping with the fellow stuff as well. And I really
Thank you
look
for
forward to
that.
working with you on that. So thanks for coming on the podcast. It's been a great conversation.
Great. It's a great industry. Like I said, thank you so much. I've gotten to know you and many wonderful people. And I do feel like our industry is doing a lot for our government and for our nation. So I just say thank you for the opportunity to talk to you today.